Hello, good evening. Welcome to a second chance. My name is Philip Jones.
And my name is Tafaro Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. If you or you know someone who has kidney disease challenges and needs to be coached, hit us up at kidneycarecoaches.com.
Today we have a very interesting show. Good friend of mine, Zach Brooks, is coming on to tell his transplant story as well as give a little information on the U.S. and the World Transplant Games. Hey, Zach, how's it going?
Hey guys, fantastic. It's a real thrill to be here. Finally, I get to meet you guys, in this format and talk to some of your guests. I follow your show. I love it. Really proud of what all you guys are doing.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you. We're gonna turn it over. We like to get straight to the story. The people here watching to hear your story. So we're gonna turn it over to yourself and go ahead and tell your story.
Well, thanks. I think that, we all have such individual stories as recipients. And I guess I'll just start with like the most average thing that it was happening to me in my life at that moment. It was June 1998, and I played soccer growing up. I played soccer in college. I had, some athleticism, and I really enjoyed it. And I was playing in a sand soccer tournament, soccer in Santa Cruz, California, which is about an hour south of San Francisco. And I did something completely unremarkable. I went to kick a ball, which is what you do in soccer, right? And because it was sand, I kicked my toe a little bit. It was just kind of a sting.
Mm.
So I left the game. I had a hard time walking, but if you play sports enough, you get dings all the time. You say, no big deal. But the next day I had a hard time walking. I went to the doctor, and he said, well, let's do an x-ray on this. And I said, doctor, I haven't been here for 5 years. I was a healthy guy. There's no reason to go to the doctor, right? Why don't we just like do a full blood work? I just randomly said that. I didn't have any sense. A couple weeks later, I went back to the doctor. He said, well, your toe is fine. There's a little bit of a sliver. It wasn't really broken. You'll be fine with the toe, but your kidneys are kind of failing. And, it's one of those moments you just can't quite believe what's going on. And it's
Mm.
really that disbelief for a long time. Like, wow, what is this? So one thing led to another. Within a few months, the next group of doctors said, you're going to have to start dialysis and then a transplant. Again, another round of disbelief, like, no way, no how, I'm a healthy guy. The rest of it, and I was in denial for a long time, like trying to solve this with all sorts of potions and alternative medicine and eating better and diets and so forth. And it certainly was a good thing to do those things. But in the end, there was one moment where another doctor said to me, is like, I asked him, so if I don't do dialysis, I was just, no way I'm going to do dialysis. How long will I live? And he said, 10 days. And, it's that kind of information you need sometimes in life when you don't want to hear those things. And I said, okay, I do want to live and go through it. So fortunately, my mom and my dad had both at that point seen if they could become my donors. And just 2 months later, on April 14th, 1999, I got my first transplant for my dad. And I ended up being in the hospital a few more weeks and so forth. But by and large, the kidney took. And after that, I did a bunch of other athletic things in my life, including dancing in a dance company, which is as hard as any soccer I'd ever done, because if you're a dancer, it's basically like being a high-end athlete, really hard stuff. And that
Right.
kidney was fantastic for about 7 years. But at the end of like kind of 6 years or so, I started to feel a little bit weird again. I kind of had a sensation like, okay, I know I didn't want to believe it, and you're fighting it and so forth. But I kind of had a sense of what was going on. This time I didn't avoid the doctors as much. So started getting tracked again for my kidney, and it turns out my kidney was failing again. Um, I knew my mom, and she had volunteered to do this. Now the second time around, said she would give me a kidney. So lo and behold, I got on dialysis again. Then June 5th, 2007, I got my second transplant, my second kidney transplant, and I was even more focused the second time around to really stay healthy and everything else. And And so within a year, I joined the Team SoCal with Philip. And man, if anyone's ever seen this guy, he's such a speedster on the track. He's just phenomenal. And so I was really happy to be a part of Team SoCal, Team Southern California, and meet all these fantastic athletes and people from around the United States. And since then, I've participated, I think, in 6 US games and 5 world games. And I've been very active in all sorts of things in this space. So that's like as short as I can make my story. But, I'm happy to share the story with other people, and hopefully they get something out of it. But I'm really just happy to have the conversation here right now.
Man, that's an awesome story. 2 transplants, and now doing the World Games. Did you go back like from your first transplant? Did you go back to like playing hardcore sports? Like, did you ever, from the 2 months of dialysis when you first started?
Yeah, I mean, I never went back to soccer in the same way. That wasn't completely because of the transplant. It was sort of, I played soccer at a really high level in my life, and then after playing soccer in college, it never was the same level of competition, and I wasn't the same soccer player anymore either. So that was kind of gradual, but I did want to really push myself, so I started doing triathlons, and triathlons were
Oh, okay.
a little bit safer in that, with soccer or football or basketball, like some random guy's elbow or knee or foot,
Hmm.
suddenly he's kicking you accidentally, and
Hmm.
that's your kidney. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do things I can kind of control more. So swimming, running, cycling, I can jump in those things and have a little bit more control over my injuries. So that was kind of the decision making process.
I clearly understand that because my first transplant, I was still playing basketball. Pretty, I played in high school and stuff, and my dad built me a little thing to put over my kidney,
Yeah,
and I had to I had to give up basketball because of the elbows and stuff, and I started just weightlifting more than anything and
mhm,
exercising like that because I had to give up the competitiveness like
yeah,
that because of that. But
yeah.
let
You
me ask
absolutely.
you another.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. Let me ask you one more other question. What was like your was you after what was your challenge with starting dialysis first? Like, what was that about?
It was just pure, unadulterated, 1000% fear. I didn't know anyone in my life before that who had done dialysis, but some way that term just struck fear inside of me like a white, hot, cold fear, just shivers, sent shivers down my body. And, it was only until like I had more fear from the doctor of dying that I decided I would do it. So, that's what we need in life sometimes. It's like you think something's scary, well, set up something scarier, and then you'll make a better decision. So, I had to be scared, and I was, and so I made the decision to do dialysis. And once I did it, I was okay, but it was a hard decision.
Right, right. For 2 months, that's quite a bit. Did they ever talk about putting a official in, or did they just do a CVC?
Yeah, well, they asked me my choice, and at the time, I was working at a Silicon Valley company my first time around, and the second time, I was a teacher, like on a daily basis, and so I chose the peritoneal dialysis,
Oh,
partly
okay.
also partly because I'm really afraid of needles. It's one of I think like God has a sense of humor, if whatever people believe in and so forth. But like some way I was born with a fear of needles, and then I've got my blood drawn 10,000 times, and so I just thought I can't do peritoneal because I'm afraid of needles. Anyway, like twice in my life I've had uh, you know had my blood drawn sitting up, and twice in my life I've passed out. So a lot of it was I was just completely afraid of needles, and I said, okay, I'll do peritoneal. I can stay on the computer and continue to do some work. So I did peritoneal dialysis.
You're not the only person
Yeah.
that's afraid of needles, Zach. I mean, it's funny because I just had this conversation not too long ago, and they were uh, trying to figure out if they wanted to put me back on hemo, and they
Yeah.
wanted me to do, home hemodialysis, and I said, look, I said we got a problem with that because number one, I don't feel comfortable poking myself. I said number two, senior over here doesn't like needles. So we
Mhm.
don't I don't know how this is gonna happen because he's
Yeah.
not gonna be able to do it for me. at all. I'm like, I have, there's no way that this is gonna happen. So, and I know that there's a number of people as well who hate needles. They just hate the sight of it, the blood, all of it. I mean, I don't necessarily hate needles. I mean, I've been dealing with needles for 28 years, but I just don't see myself taking the size needle that is to cannulate myself and be on dialysis. So,
Yeah.
trust me, I understand it 100%.
Yeah, it's one of these challenges as recipients that like we're forced to accept something we never would want to accept. We have to some way step through that fear and do it anyway. And like
Right.
well, you guys might say the same thing. Like, my story is pretty simple. Like I hear these other stories like, gosh, that woman did way more than I have ever had to do. And I have a lot of respect for her. And then it's almost easier to have respect for someone else than actually think about what you're actually dealing with yourself as
Right.
a recipient.
Right.
So yes, it's one of those like fears. You just like, all right, I got to do it. So yeah, I get you guys for sure. Yeah.
Another question I have for you, because you're so right about that. You said your first transplant lasted for 7 years, and you said it was a great kidney, but
It was.
you could tell some of the challenges. What were the things you could tell at the end when you started seeing some? You had that feeling.
Yeah, it's they kind of creep up on you like a cold might. If anyone is out there who's never had a transplant or something like that, maybe you have a cold and like you wake up in the morning like I feel a little bit tired today, and like the first things you do are like, well, I didn't sleep well last night, or I didn't eat well, or I had a soda pop, and that makes me feel like there's all these explanations in life for like why you're not feeling well. So then the next day, wake up a little bit tired, and the third day, so it's just like creeping kind of things, and then I would notice my concentration was off, or then I was getting angrier, easier over small things. So it was just the smallest things. And then, again, like I did the first time around, I just sort of thought, oh, it's something else. And it takes a long time to accept that maybe something else is going on. But I think it was just the small things because it was the second time. I had a little bit better clue for sure.
Hmm.
And so I was better about getting to the doctor quicker.
Okay. Did they ever find out the native kidney disease that you had?
Yeah, so exactly, I do. So it's called IgA nephropathy. And from what I
Okay. Okay.
understand, it's like hypertension, diabetes, and polycystic kidney disease are the big three. And I'm kind of the smaller percentage category. I think it's 2%, but everyone in my category, many of us have to get a transplant at some point. So I joined the club.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty cool club, but I don't mind being in the club either,
I
but
don't,
I
I don't
get you.
either. It's a great thing.
Right. So, how long your second time? When your first kidney failed, how long was you on dialysis the second time? Did you say?
Yeah, the second time was a little bit longer, because, I'm extremely lucky with my parents, obviously.
Right.
Um, it was about 4.5 months, I think.
Okay. Okay.
They wanted to make sure the toxins were cleaned out, but then, you guys in the audience probably knows there's this game that doctors play, like, we need to clean you out, but we can't toxify you too much. And,
Right.
they try to optimize that moment, and the game they're playing too, so you're trying to strategize yourself and visualize and everything else. So I think it was about 4.5 months, but I stayed active. I stayed active. I was actually acting in Los Angeles at the time, so I kept going to
Okay.
my acting classes, and I tried to take advantage of like this. I was feeling like really heavy and tired, so they put me in these like old man roles in my acting studio, and so I actually really did well in those moments as a guy because I knew exactly what it felt like to be slow and lethargic, and so I could just really lean into that and then fall over easily on stage without hurting my catheter. So I still stayed
Right.
active, but it's a lot of defensive mechanisms. You just try to, okay, this is not happening, this is not happening, this is not happening, and but at some point it did, and I got a second transplant. Thank God. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really good to hear. Go ahead, Phil. I apologize. You know me.
No,
I
no,
have to
you good.
keep
You,
asking
you know me.
questions.
I sit back and chill while you ask questions. But no, I understand that transition. When I got back into theater, At first it was like full speed ahead, right? Being on stage and doing all these movements and stuff. And then we had an incident coming back from Arizona, and I remember the our last production that we did on stage. Uh, he put me in a wheelchair, and it kind of hurt my feelings at first because I'm like, I don't want to be the one lone person,
Yeah.
that has to go from standing to a wheelchair. And most people not even gonna really understand why this transitioning is happening. And
Right.
I'm like, that's gonna make me stand out. And it took me a minute, a good minute, for me
Yeah,
to
good
just kind of
minute.
come to terms and just say, okay, let me just put everything I have into doing this role. And it actually came out to be, a good part in our production. It got a lot of praises. So I think with that for me was, don't be afraid or ashamed of what you have to go through. You take it, you run with it, and you make things happen. Regardless of what's in front of you. So, I did that. We got three national awards for that production, and I'm proud to be able to add that one little piece that, like, yeah, three productions, but I was in a wheelchair when I did it. And so that's I understand that transition. It was hard for me because I was on P, still on PD, but on PD when I got back in it, everything like that. So I do everything by making sure there was no wrong falling, or I didn't fall the wrong way or anything like that. I had some old people roles as well in my thing, so I
Yeah.
understand it. So my hat goes off to you though for getting back in it of everyday life. After having these transplants. My question though is,
Yeah.
how did your dad recover after donating to you? How was the recovery process for him?
Yeah, he was incredible. He trained for the transplant like it were a competition. My dad grew up playing sports. I followed along his example. He was like the best high school athlete in his high school, and he ran track in college and football. So, he was a really phenomenal athlete, and he kind of took the same approach to the transplant. And so he had the transplant. 4 days later, he walked 4 miles, and
Whoa.
really proud of that, he was really proud. I was still in the hospital for 3 weeks, which, was fine because I was recovering, but, I remember him, when he left and he walked out for a 4-mile walk and he came back and, he had this smile on his face, and it was just such a nice thing for me because of, like, I knew he felt fine, which made me feel better because, it's a big thing to receive that gift. It's a big thing to give, but to receive it, you feel so much, responsibility, but a lot of other
Yes.
mixed emotions. So when he smiled, I just thought, "Okay, that was a moment, like, I'm gonna be okay in this." So, anyway, my thanks for asking. My dad did very well after my first transplant.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's amazing right there. For doing 4 miles at
Yeah,
4 days out of the hospital. That's
yeah,
that's something else right there. But you make a great point, Zach, especially when we talk about, somebody's giving us the gift of life. And I never forget waking up for my first transplant. My sister, I received one from her. And the first thing my mom said, I asked was, "How Eva? How's Eva?"
yeah,
I'm so
yep,
concerned about her.
mhm,
And they were like, "She's fine. What you be worried about you?" And I'm like, I'm just so thankful for her to, step up and do this. So you're right about that because you feel so much gratitude. It is deep gratitude. It's like emotional gratitude when
mhm,
you receive this gift.
yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I can say the same thing, and honestly, I don't like to say thank you very much with the words. Like, to me, it's all about action. So one of the reasons I participated so often in the games is because, like, thank you is such a small word for such a big thing. Like, thank you is like, thanks for my Starbucks. That's
Right.
cool. But, you thanking your mom or dad for saving your life and giving you life, the only thing I can do is just show them, like, I'm gonna absolutely live my best life. And so I intentionally, like, really obsessively focus on activity and action and accomplishment, and all of those are like giant thank yous for my life. because like thank you is it's such a small word for such a big thing. So maybe you guys feel the same sense of gratitude because it's just such a big deal.
Yes, it's a very, very big deal, and you're right about that. So the actions speak louder than words, and you're so absolutely right about that. But let's talk about what you do right now. Like I see you boys at Hollywood. I'm in Florida. I don't know nothing about acting. I think I was on stage in the fourth grade for a fourth grade play in my life, so I know nothing about that. So, but let's ask about your exercise regimen now and what you do in training and things like that. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the part of the story where, like, I like hearing these other stories from other people too. Is since my second transplant, I probably lived in some ways my best life, even though I'm like older in chronological human age. Um, I participated in multiple transplant games. I think it's 6 U.S. and 5 worlds. I think I've won 30 some medals. So I've had some success in that, and that's been super fantastic, of course. And but what I've also done is I decided I was going to do a master's program after. So I finished that. It was University of Massachusetts, Boston. It was all online. And then after that, I wanted to do even more studies. So I got myself into a PhD program, and I
Oh
finished
man.
that after my second transplant. And that was a big deal. And, that led to various opportunities. I was in a service leadership position at the University of Arizona as a graduate student. I was much older than a lot of graduate students. So they might have felt weird about me, but to me, it was like, I'm trying to make up time. Like, I know you're 25 and like your life seems perfect and I'm happy for you. But, I feel like 5, 10 years of my life was on hold. And now I'm just like moving 5 times the speed to try to catch up. And so I had some opportunities. So one of the things I was able to do was speak in front of 40,000 people at a commencement twice. And these are like nice highlights and things to talk about, but like it's the smallest things. Like some people in our situations, they go on to have families like immediately after because they can, or they go on to start businesses because they can. And so I think it's just the incredible motivation I have because of the second chance, which is what you guys are about, that I've been
Right.
able to do some really cool things. And in terms of just service back to the community, because again, thank you is a nice thing, but it's all about action for me. I immediately joined up with Team SoCal. That's where I met Philip. I started volunteering. I helped with the Team SoCal setup after the National Kidney Foundation left the support. I eventually served on the World Transplant Boards for 4 years, and that was a good experience. And about a year ago, I started something called World Transplant Athletes, and the tagline is, if you have a body with a new part and you can move, you are a world transplant athlete. And it's all about what you guys are doing in maybe a slightly different angle of just celebrating all of us who've received things and then showing that you can live a really amazing life. And it's nice to talk about my own story, but I really love celebrating other stories in multiple languages anywhere in the earth where someone happens to find themselves and overcoming that adversity and then showing off like, hey, you too can live this fantastic life. So I've done a lot of really cool things since my second transplant, and I'm really proud of all of them, and I want to keep them going as much as I can in my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Phil, think we should go to commercial? No?
Can you
Okay.
ask one
Keep going.
question? I'm actually letting it's upload now. So
Oh, well, go ahead. You can question. Go ahead.
okay. So I this is actually kind of always been something in my mind when I saw it. But what made you decide to join the World Transplant Board?
Well, I had to be elected, first of all. So it was 2000. I guess 2017, I got a call that someone said, Zach, maybe you want to run for election to be part of the World Transplant Games Federation. And I said, gosh, it's incredible that someone would nominate me. And the reason they did is, I've lived in different countries. I speak multiple languages. My doctorate was in language and decision making. So I have a lot of interest in this area of connecting people worldwide and using languages and making sure we all are connected as humans. So I think that someone saw that from a distance. So when I would compete internationally, on the track field or wherever, I was like talking in multiple languages, connecting with multiple people. So, but when I got that, call saying, "Hey, are you interested in running?" I thought, obviously it's an exciting thing to get nominated. And I just thought it was some sort of, again, another chance to give back at life and help other people. So, I had to give a small speech, and, the people in that room elected me. And it was just a really honor to serve, um, and represent, people like you guys and any other transplant recipient out there, to always make sure that our voices were front and center when it came to any decisions. And, I did my best. And some of those organizations, they do their best, and you can just you hope the best for everyone involved in those situations.
Okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Let me ask you this question, because this
Yeah.
is something I don't think many people that are in the games now know. So, like you mentioned before, originally NKF was over the transplant games, and I believe it was at 2010 in Wisconsin was the last year that they were over it. And so you said you were part of bringing, starting Team SoCal back up after that transition. Bill Ryan took over after that to make it what it is now. So what exactly went into that transition of it being done by NKF now being done by Bill Ryan, and what did you guys have to do to keep Team SoCal together in the present format that it's in now?
Yeah, I think this is, yeah, thanks for asking. And we have a lot of the same recollections. I'll fill in some of the blanks that I know. I think this is one of these stories in life, like the darkest moments lead to the brightest ones. So the National Kidney Foundation, after 2010 in Wisconsin, like you said, they decided they did not want to be a sponsor anymore for the national games. And I remember an email the president of that organization sent out, the NKF sent out, and and I remember this quote, and a lot of us do. In the email, he said, "Transplantation has become, quote, routine." I remember
Mm.
seeing that email, and I
Mm.
literally almost flipped.
Mm.
Like, this is a
Wow.
man who's the president of the NKF, and he said transplantation has become routine. And I mean, the
Wow.
person who's received the easiest transplant in the history of transplants has had to go through so much grief and heartache and their family and money and loss, and so that really fired me up. I was pissed, and I could say a bunch of other words, but I'll keep it G right now for all the wonderful guests we have and you guys have. But I think I was probably motivated like a lot of people. So fast forward a couple of years. So Bill Ryan did an amazing job, but really, I think the story is about the groundswell of support around the country. So there were approximately 50 chapters of the NKF that mapped more or less to all of the states in the United States. And from a groundswell of like people like me, recipients and donor families, people who had lost their loved ones because they decided to let their loved ones' bodies be used to, give life to someone else, they just kind of came together around the country kind of spontaneously at the same time and said, we're going to keep this going. So I was part of the original founding, I was an original board member for Team SoCal for 2012, along with a few other people, about 5 other people. And, I was really proud to be a part of Team SoCal and keep the Team SoCal team going and alive. And then when I got to the games in 2012 in Michigan, I met a bunch of people like me, other transplant recipients, who said, well, North Carolina, we refuse to let our team go down, and Team New Hampshire, and, Team Washington State, like all this team. So I think the story is like, it's really bad. The NKF said, we think it's routine. But then the fact that all these transplant athletes and supporters came together and Bill did his great part in Michigan I think is really a phenomenal story. And the games continues because people out there know how important it is. So, I just did my small part of that moment, and I'm happy to have done it. And I'm glad in 20 years, someone else is going to have the games to go to and meet. Like, another Zach in the future is going to meet another Phil in the future, and then it'd be a lifetime friendship. And I'm so excited for those moments that are going to happen in the future.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. I just want to say for him to say, off the bat with the with that, it's a routine. Transplant being routine. I like him to
Yeah.
hear my story. And
Yeah.
he'll be like, okay. And there's
Exactly.
several others, not just mine, but several others that, who went through some serious trials to get their transplant, and it's clearly not routine. So
Nope.
that struck a hard one for me too. And for who he is too, to say something like that, that's pretty big, man. Oh man. Um,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this: what specific sports do you play, and what events that you do in the World Transplant Games?
Yeah. My number one sport is definitely cycling.
Okay.
And I've always sort of like used swimming and running to support my cycling habit. Because, if you do these sort of CrossFit type of things, it strengthens your body, especially your joints. I mean, if any of these sports, like you can be an American football player, but you need to do some stretching. I mean, you
Yeah.
can do like these gymnastic type of stuff, but you need strength. So I've always
Yeah.
used those other sports as a way to support, cycling, which is my favorite. But I really enjoy the triathlon. I'm a person who likes to do many things, and triathlon is kind of the same way. And then I get to meet people like Phil, running on the track. I get to meet swimmers, and that's a whole different crew of people. And I get to meet cyclists. So I really like that. A few times I played in some team events, volleyball, which is a lot of fun and so forth. But throughout all of the games I've done, cycling has been number one, swimming and running. So I absolutely love those sports, and I just love being a part of the games and meeting other people like more or less like me who've been through something, sometimes harder, sometimes not, but just like this energy we have right now is the
Right.
same thing I absolutely love about the World Transplant Games or the U.S. Games. There's just all wonderful energy, and we get to share that with each other.
I did the transplant games in Cleveland and Houston, and then Cleveland, and
Mhm.
it was an awesome time. And I got choked up just seeing so many people with transplants. I keep it real. I got emotional. I was
Yep.
like, wow, man, this is more. This is almost overwhelming.
Mhm.
To see so many people like yourself and everybody from all walks of life doing their thing, and it was. I really, really respected it, man. And I was, like I said, I got choked up. I'm getting chills right now just thinking
Yeah.
about it, talking about it,
Yeah.
because it was more emotional. And I had to check myself. I thought I was pretty cool at one time, and I'm sitting there like, dang, man, why am I? Maybe I got something in my eye. Let me chill out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's
It's an
awesome,
overwhelming
man.
experience for all of us, isn't it?
Right, it is. So what kind of special things are you guys doing in San Diego this year? That are you guys keeping it under wraps or what? What's the deal?
I mean, I think the San Diego games are going to be awesome. Again, because it's the spirit that stays alive. It's been going to be what, 4 years since
Yeah.
the last games were held in Salt Lake City. So I think the
Hmm.
the most important thing is about the games are not like the success of any individual games. It's the fact that we're all coming together, as many of us as we can, and celebrating our lives again. And Michigan was a much smaller event than Wisconsin, but it was just as good in terms of energy and spirit. And I think with post COVID and a lot of other things, we'll just see. But I think
Right.
it's exciting. And it's certainly exciting. It's going to be in the West Coast, and a lot of these events have been on the East Coast.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. And just to see a lot of friends again, I think is the best thing about the games. Obviously people are competitive and want to win, but man, I think my favorite moments are just when I'm like talking to someone for 5 minutes and feeling inspired by them.
Right, right, right. Because it's nothing but inspiration all around, man. And just like my last games was in Cleveland, I didn't go to Utah, and you would go out to eat and see other people from other states and stuff like that, and you had that camaraderie, and it was all good. And I felt like nothing but love there. But one question I want to ask you, and this is pertaining to what's going on right now with COVID. Do you think there's going to be any restrictions or anything like that? Are we going to have to face anything? Because are things going to be different with post COVID with the transplant games of America now? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll just give you my sort of quick take. Like once COVID hit a couple years ago, like maybe like 6 weeks into it, I said, you know what? If there's any group of people in the world who's best prepared for this moment, it's transplant recipients. Because almost every single one of them at one point had to like isolate, had to protect themselves, had to make different life choices to say, in order to stay alive, I have to kind of go into a little bit of a turtle shell. And that's painful. And every one of us knew that, but we also knew that we can come out of that shell and live healthy, happy, productive, meaningful lives. And so, kind of a few weeks into COVID, I just thought, we're all okay in this. Like, obviously we've lost some important friends and colleagues along the way, and we do, and that's of course sad. But I also, feel like we had resiliency because of our experiences that we could help other people. Like, I know
Right.
I was probably um, maybe not happier exactly, but I just knew I could get through it. Like, okay, it's a different life again. I just sort of don't worry about going out and doing different things. I'll just keep my life right here in my inner world and really develop that. And I think that really helps. And as far as like post COVID, I think that, our resiliency skills that we've taught ourselves because we had to in order to
Right.
survive, I think they're going to help us in whatever post COVID world we're going to be living in. So we'll see. I hope the games go on without a hitch, but if we have to do extra testing, I guess we'll just do it and be happy with it and see each
Right.
other.
That's funny that you say that about COVID and the resiliency. One thing I noticed with everybody, who I'm affiliated with, transplants and things like that, it didn't seem like we had a big hiccup. It was like we went over a
Yep.
little bump and kept on going,
Yep.
opposed to everybody else losing their mind about being home by themselves and all these kind of trivial things to us. Because I was like, y'all tripping over, being home by yourself and all these little things to us that was little. And that's because, like you said, we've already prepared for big moments like this already. And we have went into our shells before. I know when I was kind of like on dialysis for the period of time I would, be like almost like a recluse because I had to be, being strong up here
Yeah.
was protecting down here. So we didn't. So you're right about that as far as
Yeah.
transplant recipients and COVID. Like I said, it was kind of like a bump in the road to us where we didn't get like too rattled about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's exactly it. And that's, I think we're still going through this. And, a lot of other people in the world have now become a lot more resilient and tougher. So, some weird way, we're more in the same boat than we were before. So maybe that's a good thing for humanity and the rest of it. But, hopefully we all get out of it because it's nice to go out and see friends and, you know, see each other face to face. So hopefully we get back to that soon in a more regular way.
Hmm. Hmm. Go ahead, Phil. You know me, I can talk forever.
That's why I sent you that text, young man. That's why I sent you that text. All right, we're gonna go to a commercial real quick, and we'll come back and ask these last questions and wrap it up. Welcome back to a second chance. A couple questions, and then we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I do want to ask you, how did you start World Transplant? As I know you have a YouTube channel, Facebook, as well as an Instagram. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, and before I forget, shout out to Jonathan and Anthony. I saw your credits rolling by, and what you guys are doing, and the student advocate person. And I just love the fact that we're, growing an ocean to float more boats and make each other stronger through this. Um, well, it's a little sensitive topic, but I was on the World Transplant Games Federation, and I really thought, what was fascinating about being at the transplant games is that all these people were sharing really good advice and tips about how to train and how to exercise and how to eat. And kind of like you guys, you sort of observe things like, gosh, this is really good information. I want to find a way to share this and facilitate, more importantly for me, facilitate one person to the other, and kind of using my PhD in languages and my language ability and my interest in the world. Like, let's really connect this. And I try to kind of make that initiative go at that level. It wasn't quite receptive. So once that organization, my time with that organization ran its course, I was like, well, what do I want to do? Because that desire to give never goes away. You just have to find a different form for it. And I said, I want to go back to that idea of world transplant athletes. If you have a body with a new part and you can move, you are a world transplant athlete. And all those words are very intentional, because I think when you talk about transplant athletes, you think about, okay, he played basketball, she ran track, and no, literally, like, if a person's had diabetes their entire life, if they walk around the ward once, that is a
Hmm.
massive athletic achievement.
Yeah.
So I really want just anyone who has a body, who's had a transplant, to be able to share their stories. So kind of like you guys, I'm producing some original content with Facebook and Instagram and so forth, and sharing a lot of things, and just trying to promote people out there. Like you guys, like everyone else. And so I'm just doing my part to share the message. And really the goal for, like you guys maybe too, is I would love to know that someone tomorrow morning who, let's say, a lot like Phil, about the same age and so forth, he's waking up in the hospital with that brand new kidney or brand new lung or brand new something, eyes open up and your world changes. And at that moment, maybe they see your show, or Jonathan or Anthony or the student person or mine or something, and say, wait a minute, there's people out there like me. And now I'm going to connect with them, and they can get healthier a little bit quicker, or connect with the community quicker, because a lot of what we're going through is not just our health. Like, you guys know this very well. We feel isolated and we feel weird and we don't feel normal.
Hmm.
So just the ability to
Right.
feel normal again is just as important for our health as anything else. So I'm just trying
Hmm.
to connect people around the world, like I said, using my talents and abilities and languages, um, to do a lot of the same things you guys are doing. And we offer tips and tricks by and for transplant athletes anywhere, anytime, and of course, online.
Awesome.
Uh,
Awesome, man. Go ahead,
Go
Phil.
ahead, Mr. Cook.
Okay. I just got one last question. And
Okay.
you said a little bit about this earlier, but how long have you had new kidney? And you said you did some things that are different this time as far as taking care of the kidney.
Yeah.
What names? So let's talk about some of those things that you're doing now. Then.
Yeah. The second kidney I've had since June 5th, 2007. And
Okay.
so,
Wow.
I got luckier. I think the lucky part is, the doctors and nurses and people who do drug discoveries, they're working very hard. And so in the 7 years between my first and second, the medications were better. So,
Hmm.
like, just the first day of my new medications, I felt less impacted by the medications. So I have to give a lot of credit to, scientists are working in rooms by themselves with an idea that they can help someone someday, like you are. And I really appreciate, all those folks working around the world on that. The second time around, it's a little bit of age. I mean, I was younger after my first time. So, I still wanted to go out and hang out, and I'm not a big drinker or partier, but like maybe I'd have like two beers instead of one. And after the second one, I just sort of stopped. And not that I won't sip on a drink, like a wine or something like that, but I just really don't do those things at all. Now, I think that's for my body, and that's some transplant related and some not. But I just was much more disciplined with myself, even harsh to some degree. Like, I am going to absolutely live my best life, and it means I have to give up on some things, maybe not go to a party or not go to a place where people are smoking or not do certain things. That's what I'll do. So, health became like even more of an obsession after the second time around, and health was in like all the tiny things I did on a daily basis. I don't drink colas except maybe twice a year, just have a little taste. Don't really eat hamburgers except a little bit. So I just, like, every small little thing that I was doing maybe between the first and the second transplant, I just cut out almost completely. So it's hard to share these stories, quite frankly, because it's embarrassing. You're like, gosh, I had a great chance and so forth, and maybe I did something wrong, and maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But whatever the case is, like, I just really said this time around, I'm really going to focus even more than before. So
Right, right, and that's that's funny that you say that because bless you. We're really big. Phil knows me. I'm always talking about exercising, eating right, and when you get a second chance, just like you did, I did, we start really crossing the T's and dotting the I's when it comes to nutrition and everything. I make sure everywhere I go, I have water with me, my medications stay in the car, my wife's car, all these other things too. So that's funny that you say that because that's how I am. Because my
yeah,
last transplant was in '07 as well. But
yeah.
thank you for everything, man. I have no more questions. Phil, go ahead, do your thing, buddy.
My last question is, where did you have your first and your second transplant at?
Yeah, so I was in the Bay Area, so San Francisco area the first time around. So the first time I got it at Stanford,
Mhm.
excuse me, guys, and the second time I got it in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai. So
Mhm.
I was living in California at the time. Since then, I've lived in Georgia, Florida, and Arizona. So, but I was in California at the time, and it was just, I got really lucky. I was with really fantastic doctors and nurses and everyone else. So, yeah, shout out to Stanford. Thank you, guys and gals
All
and women and all the wonderful people again. And of course, Cedar Sinai. Everyone was fantastic.
right.
So
Awesome.
you had already knew when you had your second one, you already knew um, Kathy and all those people at Cedars. Bornhurst, I was a part of Team Soka.
Mhm.
Okay, that explains a lot because I didn't
Yeah.
meet all that whole group until I joined the transplant, but I'm still good friends with them. She helped me a lot with putting symposiums and things like that to getting people at Cedars, and that's actually where I'm in the process of hopefully getting my next transplant done. That is at Cedars as well. So no,
Awesome.
I know a lot of people on the outside of transplant as well that work there. So definitely it's a great place to be. We also uh, do a lot of work with the pediatric transplant department as well. Well, why not? So great facility, great facility. Well, Zach, uh, so happy we was able to get you on here and get your story. Um, and yeah, well, Jenny said, is that a Colorado shirt?
Yeah, it's a Colorado. I was born in Colorado, so I wear it every once in a while, and it seemed to look good under the jacket today, so I just went with it. So
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for watching. We appreciate everyone watching. We added a little twist to it. We showed up on LinkedIn today as well. So if you're watching here or are watching, please share it, and let people know about Second Chance, as well as people that we have on YouTube as well. We appreciate you watching. Again, Zach, thank you very much for your time. Definitely your dedication. We appreciate you 100%. Definitely gonna have you back on for something. We do all kinds of stuff on here, so you'll be getting the message from us for something. I don't know what it's gonna be yet, but we'll pop up with something. So please, you'll definitely see Zach on here again. A great guy. Uh, we've known each other for almost 14
12
years.
years ish. So, yeah, 14 years now. It's good.
Yeah, definitely blessed to have that friendship with Zach, especially as a transplant patient, as a person in general. So tomorrow we will not be on in the morning. Unfortunately, Mr. Cook has some things to take care of on his end. So we'll be back on Tuesday morning, roughly around 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock Eastern time for Let's Talk. And then, we're also in the process of getting ready for our conference on Friday, the 2022 Home and In-Center Dialysis Conference. We're talking about the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to have presentations from myself, Mr. Cook, Jonathan Traylor from Hope Jonathan, Dr. Shrika Brookings in Georgia. And then also a young lady, I'm not going to say her last name because I want to butcher it, but she's a dietitian. Her name is Lindsay. And I'm going to get that last name right before Friday for sure, but it's not right now. So looking forward to, as well as our patient panel. We'll have Bella Langston on, Octavius Veazey, Alex Rios, and also Fred Hill. And with our leaders of Dwellin Williams and Anthony Reed of Kidney Trail. So a great day coming up on Friday. We hope to see you all there, 3 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Eastern. And, I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Hope you have a great week. And we'll see you on Tuesday morning. Mr. Brooks, again, thank you very much for your time and dedication. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Everybody, have a great night.